You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, we're going to talk about Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, who's now sort of like the nemesis of Bubba Wallace, and Denny Hamlin. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I know more people hate Bubba Wallace, but my God, Denny Hamlin's got some folks that are not too big of fans of him either. And, of course, he's a co-owner of 2311 Racing, of which Bubba Wallace is a part of. And so Denny Hamlin, who never holds back, he never shies away from giving you the honest truth, I think, whether anybody likes it or not. Personally, I kind of appreciate that, but I've got no real dog in the hunt with Denny Hamlin anyway. He came out and he made some comments. Of course, the Echo Park race at Texas Motor Speedway was this past week, and Bubba Wallace ended up choking. And that is his self-admission. I didn't say he choked. He choked. But he self-admittedly had a mental breakdown. He choked. And after leading, I believe, 111 laps, he shit the bed. Lack of a better way of putting it, that's what happened. And, of course, Kyle Larson ended up wrecking. Well, Denny Hamlin came out on his podcast and made some very interesting comments about Bubba Wallace because he believes Bubba chose poorly in his positioning coming out of that restart. I think everybody saw that. But the interesting part is Denny Hamlin just comes right out and says he believes that if Kyle Larson didn't wreck, that he clears Bubba. He beats Bubba. Now, William Byron ended up winning the race, right? Coming out first at the end. But that's a very interesting admission from the co-owner of 2311 to just come out and say, I believe that ultimately Kyle Larson clears 23. Of course, 23, that's Bubba's car. Now, let's just do a quick little flashback very quickly to what happened the other day, and this is Bubba Wallace making comments.
He just out-restarted me, and it's just frustrating because I really take pride in my restarts and try to do everything right, and just I let everybody down today, and it sucks. So I think it was a good points day. I don't know where we stack up now, but just got to keep fighting, got to keep growing and learning and processing things better. But that's what playoffs is about, that's what NASCAR is about, and got to keep going.
Okay, so he made those comments. That was outside of what happened. That's outside of him coming out and admitting in a different interview, which I did a video on the other day, that he choked. So now, this is what happened to Kyle Larson, right?
It's going to have to stay aggressive, stay tight on the door of this
car right there, number 5, it looks like.
Oh, around that's what 5. Happened. He slides it into the wall. He goes. The caution comes out.
I think, personally speaking, Kyle Larson ends up taking
no air on the 5 as he was.
That's neither here nor there. He wrecked. And, of course, this is Bubba Wallace last year at Las Vegas attacking Kyle Larson after they both wrecked. This, of course, ended up getting Bubba suspended. And I think we all believe that at the end of the day, Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace, that's sort of Bubba's nemesis at this point. I think it should be noted, by the way, Bubba Wallace is a much bigger person. He was going after Kyle Larson. A lot of people called for Bubba to be suspended for the year, the rest of the year. Some people wanted him out of racing, and that was a major, major incident last year. So let's get to Denny Hamlin because his comments are pretty surprising considering this is his racer. I mean, but he's not going to hold back when he goes on his pod. The Lone Star State lived up to his reputation, delivering epic showdowns on the racetrack as Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace, the champ Denny Hamlin, battled fiercely in the heart of Texas. Their high-speed duel took center stage at the round of 12 openers, and Larson's Hendrick Motors Sports Chevrolet and Wallace's 2311 Racing Toyota, splitting an astonishing 210 laps at the 1.5-mile facility. Now, these comments were made on actions detrimental That's a podcast hosted by Denny Hamlin and Jared Allen. And he came out and gave some rather interesting thoughts on this race. As the Texas heat bore down, the racers Larson and Wallace carved their names into the depths of Texas Motor Speedway history. They traded places at the front for 210 laps of a 267-lap event. But when the checkered flag beckoned, it was time for the rubber to meet the road, and that's when things got wild. Quote, I was watching the restart, and I see Bubba choosing the outside and like, ugh. And like, ugh. I just didn't necessarily, especially in the moment, agree with that call. Because even though you got the lead that way, I just think the power of the position on restarts has changed. It's now on the bottom, Hamlin stated in his pod. The JDR driver added, the bottom is the power position. It's definitely the lane with the most grip through 3 and 4 on restarts especially. I just don't think giving someone else the ability to run up was a good idea, at least. Hamlin pointed out that while Bubba managed to clear a competitor on one restart due to a good jump, if he couldn't clear on the straightaway, he'd have to battle for position as seen in a later restart. This would put Bubba at the mercy of the competitor who could use more racetrack. Denny acknowledged that hindsight always makes things clearer. He would then go on to say, my goodness, in the pod, Jared inquired about Bubba's position when racing Kyle Larson inside by the side. Denny Hamlin explained that Bubba wasn't in a favorable spot because Larson had a tendency to run up the racetrack, leaving no room for the corner. Quote, my guess is eventually Kyle would run him up the track. You know, because they're racing for the win, and he's going to do whatever he can to get the win. But I think Kyle was also correct in what he said. He's like, damn it, I should have just ran a couple more laps under him. I would have cleared him eventually, he said, but I tried to do the right thing, and I got impatient, Hamlin stated. And in case you guys, that's rather interesting that Denny Hamlin came out and makes comments on Bubba Wallace and just flat says, I didn't like what he was doing. And he believes, you can tell he believes, Kyle Larson ends up taking Bubba if he doesn't wreck that car. You know, and ultimately he did wreck, and we know how that went. But Bubba still blew it in the end after leading so many laps. So did Kyle Larson. But it's hilarious that Denny is the co-owner of 2311, and he's coming out and saying, I don't like what Bubba did there. I think Bubba was in the wrong there. I don't think he put himself in a position to win there. And we know Bubba's talked about mental challenges, his mental struggles, him trying to keep it together. We've talked about that with the safety of the other drivers around him too. And here we are, and it always seems to come down. Why does it seem to come down to Kyle Larson? By the way, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson have won. The difference between those two and Bubba, Kyle and Denny have won a shit ton of Cup Series races. Okay? And, Bubba hasn't. Let's put it that way. But if you look at NASCAR's page, or if you look at NBC NASCAR, or if you look at Fox NASCAR, my God, you would think Bubba Wallace was Dale Earnhardt, for crying out loud. The actual Dale Earnhardt, not Junior, Senior. Because, I mean, they will put up 7, 8, 9 Bubba Wallace videos on their social media pages every time Bubba gets out on the track. It's crazy. Tell me what you think, black and white sports supporters. Peace, I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.